We shouldn't be fighting the same war that our grandmothers had to fight, our great-grandmothers had to fight.
Nothing has changed. What are we supposed to do? Nothing has changed.
You can't sleep at night until you know that they're home in the house, because you never know.
I am afraid because, like, if I go outside, then something will happen to me or my family.
You cannot insulate them, because at some point, they're going to come face to face with the reality of their blackness.
This is a time that this generation just really is saying, no, I'm tired of it.
We have to stand united. Don't you all give up.
When you watch your big brother, who you looked up to your whole entire life, die begging for his mom, I'm tired. I'm tired of pain. This is 2020. Enough is enough.
And a good evening to you. I'm Craig Melvin. For more than 2 weeks now, Americans of all colors have filled the streets of this country protesting the death of yet another unarmed black man killed at the hands of police. The images are as heartbreaking as they are poignant. But out of the cries for justice, we have seen some change. For instance, in Minneapolis, they've banned the use of chokeholds. They've also done that in Washington, D.C., Denver, Chicago as well. Mayors across the country coming together to create working groups now to combat racism and police reform. To say the least, this flashpoint has had a devastating impact on communities of color. Devastating. The world is watching. History is recording. This week's cover of The New Yorker features an illustration called Say Their Names. It's by Kadir Nelson. It's a representation of, quote, the unnamed millions of black enslaved in America. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Eric Garner, and the latest, Rayshard Brooks, have something in common with all of us. They were someone's child. And that's where we start this evening, continuing this national conversation with the parents of children who are growing up black in America. I'm joined now by Ron Mitchell and Ebony Gates from Chicago, Illinois. They're the parents of 5-year-old twin boys. Good to see both of you. Also, Jessica and Kimry Gauthier, the parents of a 9-year-old son and a 7-year-old daughter. Thank you both for being with me as well. Ron, I'm going to start with you. You're a 6'7", 250-pound Division I basketball player. You went to Harvard, but your personal success hasn't really seemed to matter in the times that you've been racially profiled. Talk to me a little bit about your experience with police as you've watched this protest grow literally right outside your Chicago home.
Yeah, I think it's often a misconception just because you come from a certain background or you've achieved certain types of professional or academic success that you may not have had these types of interactions with the police. And that's one thing that I'm always trying to impress upon my friends, my white friends, that I've been stopped unfairly by the police. I have a fear when I'm in the presence of a number of police officers. It's just this inherent sort of fear that you freeze up because you don't know how a policeman may respond to you, particularly as a very tall and can be considered intimidating black man.
Ebony, you, as I understand it, are from the Rio, Virginia, as they call it, rural southwestern Virginia. Growing up, you saw a KKK march once or twice, friends using slurs in your presence. How do you talk to your boys about growing up black in this country, using your experiences growing up black in this country?
I started off in New Jersey, in a very, very diverse neighborhood, a diverse school, had not had any experiences where I felt different. We all were different colors and had different religions, and that was fine. And then, yes, we moved to Virginia when I became 12, and I was trying to have a slumber party, and parents called my mother and said, "I'm sorry, our kids can't come." And that was the first time I'd really experienced something. And it kind of, I was there for 5 years, took an emotional toll on me, a long-term toll. And as I think about our boys, I look, this question of racism isn't something that is happening for people now just because something is happening on TV and we're covering it. It's something that my boys have been talking about and have noticed since they were 3 and 4 years old. So we're doing our best to make sure that we instill the values that we have and want for ourselves and our children, that they're empathetic, that they're good citizens, that they can talk to us, showing them that they can advocate for themselves. We help try and teach them that. Helping them understand, consumable bites about what's going on when they do ask questions, not giving them too much. But it's not too early to have the conversation, so it started.
Even at 5, even at 5.
At 3, I took our boys to a Martin Luther King program at the Children's Museum here. It was supposed to be for 2 to 5-year-olds. And it was a good program, but it was a lot more than I expected. They confronted black and white and the problems. They made them cross a picket line. One of our children, it takes a little longer to get it. The other child, Trace, started crying immediately and just said, what's going on? Why can't I play with white kids? And about a month later, the other child, who I wasn't sure if he understood or not, we were on a bus. And he said, we're not supposed to be on a bus with those people because we're brown. So they've been trying to figure this out for a while.
Jessica, let me turn to you here for a moment, because as we know, so much of the success that black children and families have in this country, it's largely based on zip code, where you were born, literally where you were born. You live in Tennessee, and you recently relocated for diversity. You say that you constantly felt like an anomaly. You would walk into a restaurant or a store and you could hear the silence. For folks who aren't familiar with what you're talking about, explain that for us.
I talked about, I said there's an episode of Blackish that explains that phenomenon exactly, where you kind of constantly feel like you're on a show, like you're always on. So you want your kids to be perfect. You want them to be dressed perfect. You want them to say the right things. You don't want them to dance too much. You don't want them to talk too much. So we kind of always, we were doing it unnaturally. Like we didn't even really think about that's the kind of life that we were living. And then as we started traveling more recently, we were like, gosh, I feel like we're putting on kind of a show, at home. Like we always feel like we're just trying to make sure we're doing the right thing. Just in general, like he talked about earlier, we went to college, we got married, we had kids, we checked up all the boxes that you would say make a successful American family, but then yet every day we would constantly feel like we weren't doing enough, or we weren't saying the right things, or we weren't, I don't know, it's just a pressure that we felt. So we recently just moved back to his hometown, which is a military base that is kind of a utopia for diversity, where, our neighbors are black, white, Asian, Indian, and all in the same neighborhood, not just diverse in the city and everybody goes in their own little boxes. It's just, the fabric of the city. And with something that was really important to him growing up. And I had that when I grew up, and we just decided as family, as parents, this is something that we need to give our kids. And we just wanted them to have that too.
You said something that resonated with me. I've got a 6-year-old boy and a 3-year-old daughter, and you go out sometimes, and they look, depends on who you talk to. They either look black or they look racially ambiguous, and I'm always struck when a stranger will say to me, "Oh, your kids are so well behaved."
Yeah,
and that they probably wouldn't say that if there were 2 white kids sitting there who are the same age. Exactly. It's like, do you not expect my kids to be well behaved?
Yeah. So we dealt with that a lot. Like we always joke with our friends, like we would go to a store, Target, or a restaurant or something like that, and we'll get that oh my God, your kids are so well behaved, they're so well spoken, and I'm like, yeah, but they're not doing anything crazy. They're not out here building a small model airplane in the middle of the store, or or solving world peace in the middle of the store. I mean, they're just being well-behaved kids. And I do feel a lot of it comes from not expecting Black kids to behave like that, because they get a stigma of being loud and ignorant and over the top and just bad in general. So we always said, like, we felt like unicorns walking into stores,
especially a family of four.
Yeah, so it's mom, dad, brother, sister, and people look at us like, oh my God, it's a whole brown family together.
And the dog,
and they're all dressed well and well behaved, and they can speak, and so we really didn't want that feeling for them, and and we'd explained it to like some of our white friends, back in Knoxville and that stuff, and they would look at us like, really? And because they don't get it, they don't think about it, just think about us like just a regular family. They love us, but after a while you keep getting that, you're like, look, man, I get it, like, our kids are cute, but it's okay.
Yeah, they're special, but I mean, you don't have to point it out all the time. Yeah.
They speak so well. They're so well spoken, as Chris Rock used to say. Stand by for me a second, guys. Ebony, Ron, Kimry, Jessica, don't go anywhere. I want to continue this conversation in just a moment. We're going to talk about what it means to prepare your children to interact in a world that has at times been unjust and in some cases deadly to them.
Hands at 10 and 2, no sudden moves, eyes forward, yes officer, no officer. Act like you have some manners, be professional, keep it to the facts. And what's the most tiresome about it is you don't have the conversation just once, you're always having the conversation. Because the first time you have the conversation, it starts with something like, I don't expect you to understand anything that I'm about to tell you, but I would be irresponsible if we didn't have this conversation. So I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say it again, and then I'm going to tell you what I told you, and then we'll have it again. And at some point, you will remind me that we had this conversation, and you'll tell me, now I know what you were talking about. There are some things that you're going to have to do differently, or that you can't do that your friends do.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.